Atta boy. Yes, sir.
I have a thought that I've had for about a year, and I just told it to a couple guys in the cage this week, but I wanted to bring it up today and announce it to the world. But I like this term, you need to be a chameleon. And I made that up, so I'll patent that and make some money off that.
There you go.
But you got to be a chameleon.
T-shirts
And what I mean by a chameleon is you've got to adjust. You can't have one swing plane. You know, you can't take the same swing on a high. I mean, these days people are throwing 100 miles an hour at the top of the zone. And I'll name drop again, Jake Berger, the best guy I've ever worked with. I've talked to him recently. And Jake, for those of you who don't know, just made the big leagues with the White Sox. Incredible story, great kid, best kid I've ever worked with for lessons. And I'm a big fan. And when he was in the alternative camp last year, whatever it's called, and then AAA this year, and then and I said, what are they throwing? How are they pitching you? Now I can see how they pitch on TV. We can all see that. Sorry, but I mean, he says, well, it's a lot of high fastballs at the top of the zone, and then a lot of harsh breaking balls. Which well, you got 97, 100 miles an hour at the middle top of the zone, which is where the pitchers are liking to throw it these days, because a lot of people are tilting under. You can't.
You're not going to hit it.
You can't hit that. You can't hit that. So you take a Chris Bryant, who's a stud, but he's got that tilt swing, or a Bellinger when he had his they ain't hitting that. You know, if it drops down low or you throw a low fastball, you're right in their wheelhouse. So my point is, why can't you, when you see the high fastball, flatten out, and then maybe when it is lower in the zone, and then you're a Bryant type guy, then take your hack that launches. And another part to me, don't have the same swing all the time, is what I'm saying. And I think that's what a lot of people are doing and a lot of people are teaching, at least professing on the internet. I know that for sure.
I think it goes on a spectrum. So back when I was playing and taking training from you, and then obviously listening to my college coaches, it was all hands. It was make sure your hands work. They just spoke about that all the time. But now everyone's trying to figure out, can we produce more velocity off of the bat, because there's a metric that's involved now. If I start talking hands, I'm going to lose clients from my personal perspective. If I start talking about home runs and driving with power, and then talk through big body parts rather than little body parts, I keep those clients. That's just my personal encounter. It could be totally different because you've been in it for 25 years.
25 years. I don't know why you would, hands to me, and I know this sounds really old school, but I'm 46, so but to me, if you don't have good hands, you can't play.
Well, you can't make contact.
But
I indirectly start speaking about that. I don't come out and say, you need to get your hands towards this pitch, that pitch.
Yeah, I mean, I don't talk about the first day. I talk about whatever I see that day, on a first-time client. But talking to you guys about real hitting, and if you want to hit 98 to 100, you better have good bat speed. And again, not everybody can do that. These guys on TV make a lot of money because they're special. Well, they're special because they're quick. Now, the lower half base, having great balance, and having great torque and all that, of course I think it enhances. But the ironic part, and I'm not advocating that people do this, but the ironic part about my career is that I had terrible footwork and balance naturally, which I have proof of from video from when we got to Missouri State, and they videotaped us right off the bat.
I'm not going to lie, it looked pretty bad.
It's bad. I mean, there's nothing clean about it.
I don't know how you hit that many home runs in high school.
Either do I. And then
by the grace of God.
Well, and then the ironic part, if I asked you guys, for a hitter, and you're going to go lift weights, what's, in your opinion, what is the kind of known entities of what the best body areas are to lift for power and strength?
When I first started out,
I think anytime right now.
Well, first time I thought it was all legs. Now, in college, Missouri State, because it has one of the best PT programs in the area, they spoke heavily on functional movement. It was before they had this functional movement craze with
I don't even know what that is. What is that?
It's core. It's
core.
Being able to balance yourself correctly, being able to hold your weight correctly, rather than building up one set of your body. And you're not going to be able to be sound. You're not going to be able to move correctly.
It's the same with pitching. It honestly is, because building up whatever can keep you as stable as possible while also creating the most rotational acceleration as possible.
So again, to be specific, would you, if I said that the lower half, the legs and the core, are kind of the, no pun intended, the core.
That's your
values, right?
It's your foundation, right?
It's your
right,
stability, but it's also your first component of creating rotation.
But what's interesting though is that your core is, now that how I train guys, that I view the core way more important than the legs, because I feel like if you have a good core, your legs are going to come with it, because you're obviously going to have to work your legs as you work your core. So it's like it goes hand in hand.
Well, the great thing about every word you guys keep saying about that, first of all, I agree with. But here's the ironic part. I started lifting weights when I was probably 11 years old because my older brother was lifting in the basement, so me and my buddies wanted to be like him and his buddies, so we started dabbling around with lifting weights at a real young age at our house. Yeah. Too young. You know,
I mean that's pretty young.
Yeah, but I'm telling you,
back then you had no idea like if that was against you.
Nope.
Yeah.
I didn't. Growth plates wasn't a term, and you know,
you didn't have.
I don't think
you didn't have the
stunt
internet.
your growth though, buddy.
Well, I think it caused some of my arm problems.
Yeah.
But here's the point: when I started lifting, we were doing bench and curls and tries and whatever we knew of, and then a few years later, I got to high school and had a weightlifting class, and they had you do the deadlift and the squats and all that stuff. I had something called Osgood-Slaughter disease in my left knee because I grew tall real fast.
Yep.
And so that all those things hurt my knee. And the squats, that bar on the back of my neck, that didn't feel too good.
Right.
With the pad, right? So long story short, I'm not making this up. I've probably done, deadlift and squats 4 or 5 times in my whole baseball career. I didn't do legs. Core wasn't a term when I played. Now,
not even at Missouri State.
Missouri State, we did abs.
But did you
not core?
But you didn't do like squats or deadlifts, or did you? Or did you just punt it? Like when they said, "Oh, we're gonna do this," and you're like, "Oh, that's not for me."
Well, I'll tell you the first thing we used to do weights with Coach Wolfork, who I believe went to Notre Dame, which is pretty cool, before school, before class. Mm-hmm. So we had weights. As far as team weights was 6 a.m.
Yeah, 6 a.m.
So you guys know me. I'm not a morning person.
You're definitely not.
So I had to show up. That doesn't mean I had to lift. I never lifted one weight. If Coach Cutton hears this or whoever else, I didn't touch a weight.
So what did you do?
I stood around and tried not to get in trouble. I spotted people. I looked around, and if they looked, I'd pull up 1 rep. I would lift after school at Plaster Arena on my own. I was lifting.
Okay. I was gonna be that guy that like hates you.
No,
because I'm working my tail off. I'm like, this dude is just sitting here.
No, I lifted my ass off, but not at 6 a.m. And then the other thing is when we were doing abs, I remember doing bicycles and crunches, and the whole team is laying on the floor in Forsyth Arena.
Oh yeah.
When we did all that stuff, I didn't do it, and when he was looking, I'd be like, oh, yeah, and I'm doing this and doing that. And when he wasn't looking, I'm like, whatever. And here's my,
You're definitely that guy.
Here was my theory. I'm like, back then, there was no correlation or no communication about abs and back problems.
So they
and
never
core.
gave you the why.
No. And
so it made no sense. You're like, why the hell am I doing this?
And this was honest to God my thought. First of all, I'm in a uniform when I'm playing. So nobody's going to see my abs, even if I get them. But my arms and my chest and my back they can see. And I had a beer from time to time, so I'm like, I'm not going to get abs. I'm a beer drinker. Like, why am I wasting my energy doing this? So here's my point, guys. Dave, I swear to you, and I'm not trying to be a anti. I think it's all. If I had to play again, I would do it just to avoid the back problems. Because I had a lot of back problems in college and in pro ball. I had a lot of oblique problems.
So that was the reason, because you didn't know the why.
I never did legs. I never did core. I had crappy balance, horrible when I got to college, and I still hit bombs. I hit 1 million bombs. You know what I'm saying?
Why do you think that is?
I had great hands. I had great hand-eye coordination.
You that talented?
I think I was. I think I was naturally talented.
Yeah.
From what I hear from my dad when I was a little bitty kid, and I know when I was a little kid, I was always the best guy. But I'm telling you, nobody wants to hear this anymore because you can't teach it. And I'm a teacher too, so I want to teach tangible things. But I'm telling you, and I'll tell any client that asks me, part of it you're born with, And the parts I mean are really your hand-eye coordination, in my opinion, and your hand speed. You know, you every big league team, you have a 3-hitter and you have a 9-hitter. And I'm telling you, the Pujols of the world have better bat speed than the average 8 and 9-hitter. They're all working as hard, and you could argue that the 7, 8, 9 guys are working harder. You know some of those guys you've played with that they're not the best players. We've all played with those guys that were just tough guys. You know what I'm saying? And just they work out more. And they
that was me. I was a grinder.
Yeah, you're a grinder.
I wanted to outperform in practice, and then I thought the games would take care of itself. But I didn't want to rely everything onto the game, because if I didn't perform, I'm sitting on the bench.
Well, that's anybody.
But not to the degree of you, though, because you had that history behind you.
But I always had success.
Yeah.
So, but my point is, I didn't do legs. I didn't do the things that you're now supposed to do. And again, if I went back again, I would do them. And I have my own son who plays, my 17-year-old Eddie. He does them all the time. His legs are bigger than mine. Right now, his legs are huge. But here's the deal. And I love my own kid. He can't hit like me. Mm-hmm. He's got better legs. He's got better core. He's been taught since he was born by me. Yeah, but he's got a better swing than I ever had. But you have to have. There's a natural Vlad Guerrero Jr. Those guys are just special, and I'm not saying I was special like them. I wasn't. But to the areas that I played until I got to about AA, AAA. AAA is the only place I didn't get to play. But even in AA, whether it was Pat Burrell or this guy, I was right on par.
But your swing was not like a typical swing. It like if we pulled up video right now and you compared it to a major league swing right now,
it's a disaster. Until Coach Gutton got a hold of me, and that's why I praise him every time I can. Keith Gutton, I wouldn't have got half as far as I did without him not cleaning me up. I couldn't have kept going the way I was swinging. No way.
You don't think so?
There's too much. No, I had a very, very long stride.
So you would have been screwed on breaking balls.
Yeah, well, they told me up front. I vividly remember this stuff because I had never been taught before. So it was very, up front in my mind. But they said, listen, they throw a lot harder here than they do. It's not 75 to 85 or 70 to 80. It's 80-something to 90-something here. Mm-hmm. And I had this very long, lunging, dragging the back foot out in front stride. So they said, you're going to be late. And when you start cheating to get quicker for these 90-ish fastballs, then you're going to be early in the breaking ball. So this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
So the long story short is why I went mechanically from a long stride to ended up being a no stride, which ironically, again, we talked about Bill Miller, but he was doing that his senior year as a switch hitter. He was doing the Pujols heel to the heel end before Pujols was even famous. And they said, come watch him. We're going to have you do this in practice for a while and see if we can knock the stride down over time.
But that's a really good point, though, is because if you look at Albert Pujols, not many people can duplicate his swing when he was in the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. That looked very uncomfortable.
Yeah, high elbow and
high
no
elbow.
Stride.
It just looked like he was so stiff.
But he's natural.
That's what I'm saying.
He's just a stud.
And now he's trying to figure out later in his career he has to get a leg kick because he realizes that talent that he had is definitely diminished.
And that's what happens
naturally.
That's what happens to all of them. Your bat speed goes down. That's a great point. They're trying to compensate for their lack of the. I'm just telling you. I had a kid yesterday, 2 days ago. I just met him, little 7.5, almost 8-year-old, and I don't know who he is, but I said, I play with this guy that knows you, and they recommended you. I'm like, okay. He comes in. I'm like,
just crushing.
He's 7. He's almost 8. I told his dad. I said, hey, he's got some hands. He's got some pop to him. Anybody, in my opinion. Anybody can be taught how to do a lower half function. Seal off the front side, firm front side, torque the back side. And if you lift legs a ton and if you do a bunch of core work, you guys could torque and turn and do better leg work than I could. But no offense, I can hit it harder and further than you in my prime, no matter what you did.
I would agree
in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so what I'm telling you is all of my own kid, keep doing it. Do it. But,
you just don't know what's going to happen, though, in 2 to 3 years.
Hitting the ball hard will never go out of fashion.
Yeah.
Hitting the ball hard. Now they have a name for it.
But what I'm saying is from a career standpoint, because I was a junior college guy.
Yeah.
And in high school, I wasn't a hitter. I was good at it, but I wasn't, amazing at it. Mm-hmm. And I went to junior college, figured out switch hitting, and then I started having power on both sides of the plate and being a guy that could pop off 6 home runs in a college season, which is what I ended up doing my senior year. But I think a lot of guys, when they swing, they're seeing these big league guys and seeing all these metrics and Twitter, and they're like, why can't I do that? And my biggest thing is like, don't quit on it. You just don't know what's going to happen.
Oh, not at all. But they're not that powerful yet. So even for instance, like, you know, I saw this one thing somebody sent me, and the guy was talking about the metrics and the launch angle and the angle of the ball and all this stuff, and he said, you know, all that's great, but if you can't hit it over whatever this magic number was, 92 miles an hour, it ain't going over a 400-foot fence or 330. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so you can have a kid who does this and launches and kills it, and it dies 30 feet from the track, and then it's no good. You know what I'm saying? So and maybe in 4 years he will hit it over.
Well, you know what doesn't go out of style is doubles.
Well, and I'll make it simpler than that, because this is what I say about 700 times a day in lessons, and I'll say it to you and I'll say it to anybody. Line drives. Line drives. You know, hit line drives. You know, Dave Roberts, I'm going to say this again. Go back to being a hit collector. Hit line drives into the gaps. If they start carrying over the fence, so be it. There's another thing I like. This is from Dave Roberts. He was a hitter first and then slug followed. Slug meaning slugging percentage and hitting for power.
Yeah.
This is Dave. Forget Steve Hacker. Forget Spiker and Dave Berkby. Who cares? This is Dave Roberts. I've always liked Dave Roberts, but I like when he stole the base and helped beat the Yankees, because I don't like the Yankees, but I don't like the Red Sox either. But you know, I'll take the Red Sox over the Yankees, because the Yankees have 700 championships and I can't watch it anymore. But you know, this is a big leaguer, not me, who's saying he was a hitter first, then the slug followed. And this is then they go on, and he says, this is quotes from him and the head hitting coach at the Dodgers, which the name is up here. They have 3 hitting coaches, which I thought was interesting. But the point is, this is a quote again, okay? So you guys I can put this up and you can prove to your guys I'm not making this up. I just want him to focus on being a good hitter. Be a good hitter first. Be a doubles guy. He's grinding, but he's got the mindset. If he's got the approach of being a doubles guy, that'll benefit him far more than feeling you have to hit a homer, so now you're back. I think that consistently going forward, he'd be best served to be a hit collector, driving in runs, using the whole field. And then this is my favorite part. I believe that the mindset and the use of the whole field, a little flatter path, I think it will lead to success. I have to fight.
But you know,
I have to fight the new age for the last 10 years or so of all this BS swinging up. Fine, I swung up too, by the way. When I call it a time and a place.
And sometimes you are.
Yeah.
Sometimes you naturally are.
but if it's 3-1, I'm taking a gamble.
But let me ask you a question, because here's the
Now you're hearing me.
Yeah, well, and I'm not a hitting coach. I've coached a lot of good hitters, and I've heard you talk forever.
But
around
Dave,
it.
first of all, you're a pitcher, and in my opinion, if pitchers don't know anything about hitters, you're screwed. And if I don't know anything about pitchers, I'm screwed. I like your opinions, so let's hear it.
So you've worked with youth guys, 18 and under, your whole career.
Mm-hmm.
If you started, how many of those guys, if you were, let's say you were a launch angle guy, you fell into the craze that a lot of guys did, how many of those guys are talented enough to even understand it or do it, in your opinion?
They're not strong enough or powerful enough or good enough, most of them. No offense to them.
And how can they understand that? And then how can they adjust? So you say 0, because I would say 0.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, but no, I mean, but I've never talked about it all the time.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, in my opinion, 0. If I started talking about that and talking about metrics, and you got to match this plane, they're not talented enough to do it.
And, and by the way,
it goes back to basic needs.
Go ahead, Dave. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And then secondarily, let's say you get to the big leagues and you get to that level, or minor leagues, where you can work and you can understand that if that's your thing, Bellinger, how in the world are you going to be able to adjust when a pitcher sees that? Because they're very talented and they see you're doing that, and then they're going to, what you just said.
That's why I say it's not sustainable.
Now you can't beat it.
You can't swing. You got to be chameleon. You got to adjust. And what you started saying, 3-1. Okay, here we go. 0-2. Not so much.
And then you're Matt Carpenter.
You're Matt Carpenter. Let me give you 3 names that I wrote down for this conversation. Chris Davis, Matt Carpenter, Cody Bellinger. You guys hear about Chris Davis the last few days?
Yeah, he's retired.
He's retired. He had this breakout 50-something home runs. I looked up his stats today before I came, so I don't look like an idiot. And even in the next year, he had some home runs, but he hit 196, I think. You know what I'm saying? They figure out how to pitch you. They're always going to be adjusting. That's what pitching coaches do.
Always.
Catch new episodes of the Tiger Interview Series on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and you can watch it on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to get notified of future episodes by setting notifications to all. And check out our website, rawlingstigers.com, for club, baseball, and softball information.